Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. All right, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one about the $10,000 hustle. Well, that feels like the $20,000 hustle with Sash, because this is the second time we have attempted to record this podcast, because we had a mare the other day and it just dropped out.
Did we have a mare?
Okay, Browns Bay, the whole North Shore had a mare. Everybody lost power. Alarms started going off and it just cut our recording, which normally doesn't matter. We can jump back in. But I think because I was jumping and hot-spotting off my phone. And
You just went the extra mile to try and deal with the crisis. At one stage I was saying, Ish, no, I can hear all the house alarms going off in the background. So you closed the windows and was sitting in your little sauna and it still didn't work.
But Sunday morning, this is a good time to do a podcast record. So we've rehearsed. We've got one practice one in the bank, so this should be an absolute banger.
Well, even this morning we've had trouble getting the tech to work right. And I had this little thought. I thought, oh, is God angry that you're working on a Sunday?
Well, working on a Sunday, because you're off to Japan next week. Another trip.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. So what are you going over there for?
I'm going to look at the cherry blossoms. It's my festival of 50. I'm going to be 50 this year. I'm just saying yes to opportunities that present themselves. And a friend said, do you want to come look at the cherry blossoms? And I said, yes. And I thought, can I afford to look at the cherry blossoms? And it turns out if I fly to Japan via Singapore, I can.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. So you're away for the week, but we're recording today, which is pretty cool. So we're talking about the $10,000 hustle. And this idea kind of came from a conversation I was having with a personal trainer where I proposed a technically hypothetical, but you should just do this situation, which was how fast could you get 10 clients? And really the exercise was to be two-part in the conversation. One was, how many creative ways could he come up with to maybe get 10 clients? And then in the second part of the conversation was around the pace and the timing, because there are personal trainers out there that have a waiting list of people wanting to train with them, and they could just send a text message and say, hey, I've got 10 spaces available, and they'd fill that within a day. Whereas other people would have to run a promotion, they'd have to do advertising, they'd have to network, and it might take them a month, might take them 2 months. So really it was about how do we build our businesses in a way that has the resource ready to go, so if we have someone leave, we can fill that space, and also looking at unlocking the creativity behind trying to get busy. So I thought, why not do a $10,000 hustle? How fast could you get 10 grand? How many ways could we do it? And there's a couple of learnings out of this, I think.
I love the idea of this because it forces you to be creative. It forces you to have some urgency about what you do. And I think so many of the challenges that we face in life, we kind of jog towards potential solutions. And I think that eventually we get there, but we've wasted a whole lot of time. So I love the urgency of saying, imagine you've got a short space of time and you have to come up with a sum of money, or you have to come up with a solution to a problem. The same thinking kind of applies. How would you go about doing it? So I'm excited to see how you are going to raise your $10,000. I've got some ideas for mine, but I want you to go first.
Cool. Well, the first thing that came to mind, and don't judge me and never use this, was steal it. If we're just playing a creativity game, obviously we could rob a bank. We could steal $10,000. But the consequences of that action would have some serious repercussions. So for the creativity side of things, stealing it might seem like a good idea, but for the practical business side of it, not really a good one. So maybe we default to we could sell something. Is there something that we own right now that we could sell in exchange to get $10,000, because maybe we've got an opportunity to invest that in a different way, so reallocate the resource that you've got?
Well, I think that's a great idea, and I'd like to unpack it a little bit further. But before then, I think we've missed a step, because the first thing I'm going to do when I need $10,000 is I'm just going to ask you for it.
Okay, good. Okay, you can ask someone for it.
Then I don't have to give up any of my things. I just have to ask you, do you want to give me or do you want to loan me $10,000? And I think this leads to a really interesting thought experiment where you go, do you know anyone that would loan you or give you $10,000? Yes or no? Then you say, well, do you know 10 people that would loan or give you $1,000? Do you know 100 people that would give or lend you $100? Do you know 1,000? And you kind of play around with the numbers. Do you know 10,000 people who would give you $1? And what does that look like? So I think this idea of sort of breaking our problems up into the appropriate size can be quite interesting too. And sometimes we do as much work for a little small outcome when we could actually just go for a much bigger prize for the same amount of time. Find one mark for 10 grand.
Yeah, I love that thinking. And sometimes we just default to, well, I just need to get the lump sum, right? And if the lump sum is not there, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I can't do it. But like you said, if we can think a little bit differently, maybe break it down, and then all of a sudden we get this ability to be able to chunk it up into smaller chunks. So I guess even with the selling something, it might not be selling something big. It could be selling lots of different items to kind of get to that end result. And maybe it doesn't have to be a physical item, Sash, something you own. It could be selling something else.
Yeah,
what could you sell?
I mean, you can obviously sell your services, things that you offer, things that you have expertise in. And I think sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for things that we know that other people might pay for. So I know there's things that you could do like tutoring someone else or teaching someone else a skill that you perhaps take for granted. All kinds of things. Help your friends take better photos for the gram. Just run a little course. There's lots of value that we have that we know that we don't necessarily understand what people would be prepared to pay for that. If you're not going to give me the money, so you say, what am I going to do? The first thing I'm going to do is I think I've told you this before, but the best part of my body are my toes. I've got really lovely toes. They all go down in perfect order. There's no like big manky second one that's taller than the big toe. It's like they're small and they're also really small. And this is like, it's not kink shame. Some people are into little feet and I haven't had mine bound. They're just naturally little. So I could sell pictures of my feet on the internet.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is you're going to set up an OnlyFans page for your feet and sell the concept of your toes.
I reckon I'm going to get to 10 grand pretty bloody quick. I mean, I'm going to have to shower a lot to deal with the money, right?
Yeah.
But yes, I could.
Yeah.
Yes, I could sell pictures of my feet. I could sell pictures of my feet. I didn't mean to pause for so long then.
Yeah, but you're right. It's sometimes we've got like an expertise or something, and we don't value it because we compare maybe to someone else. So just recently, I've been asked to solve a situation or a problem for a friend of mine. So they need someone to come in and do a really quick video with someone in their company. They don't want to be spending $20,000 to be doing it. They just need someone to kind of show them how to do it using a phone. And they're willing to pay quite good money in order for me to do that. And it would be very easy for me to go, I don't have the skill set, but I actually do have the skill set at the level that they need it. And the exchange of money is a good use of my time, and it's developing that skill again. So sometimes even your skill set, you sometimes only need to be 10% better, 20% better than the person that you are tutoring or selling the skill to, and all of a sudden that can become quite a lucrative business.
Yeah, I love that idea. So much of what we pay for in terms of expertise is real expertise that is outsized for the size of our problem. So little wee tiny small businesses go to accountants, and the accountants can also do massive companies, and they charge you a lot to do your little wee company. Yeah. And it's like, no, that's an outsized relationship. I'm paying too much for not enough value, not because you're not good, Mr. Accountant or Mrs. Accountant, but because what you're doing is actually beyond what I need. So I don't want to pay that much. So there's lots of little gaps in the market where skills that you've got can be useful. I want to come back to just selling stuff. Yeah. Like, I reckon our houses are full of stuff we don't need and don't use. And there's value for people out there. And this is the classic kind of trade me eBay,
Depop.
Yeah, the whole kind of Facebook marketplace where you can sell stuff. But stuff on its own often isn't valuable. So if I think about I've got a whole lot of kids' clothes, and if I go, well, I'm going to sell that T-shirt for $2.50, the effort in listing that T-shirt for $2.50 is not worth it if anyone ever pays that for it. But I think if you can get creative about bundling stuff, it's really good. So I know when my kids were little, I used to buy bundles off in secondhand places. It would be things like 6-year-old boys pack, and it would have a couple of pairs of cool shoes and some T-shirts and some shorts and a little cute jacket that you couldn't get anywhere else, and that all bundled up to like $50. And you'd go, wow, that is actually really good value. And it's good for the environment when we're reusing stuff, and I'm here for it. But we've got to get a little bit creative about how we package stuff up.
Yeah. And sometimes you can sell something that you've managed to acquire quite cheaply. So I know that my daughter for a while was going to secondhand clothing shops, buying labeled clothes for like 50 cents, $1, $3, and then selling them on Depop for like $50. And because a lot of people are just kind of donating this clothing, and when it comes in, and she kind of knew the key places to go when the fresh load of clothing came in, and yeah, she'd get the Nike jacket that you see in the retro shops for like $200 because they're back in style, and someone's just donated it to charity, and now they're putting it in the bin for $1. So there's even things like that you can kind of do. I heard one with a guy, and he was literally buying people's old couches, and then he was fixing them up, doing some reupholstery on them, and selling them for like thousands of dollars because people couldn't be bothered. They just wanted it out of their house when they were getting their new couch. And out of that, he made this business. Like there's opportunity out there. And it's interesting. If you had to get your 10 grand with your expertise, how could you get there? And yeah, just looking at lots of different ways to do it.
So many creative ways of doing stuff. My dad bought us a house once, just like this random kind of a thing, where there was a guy who had a house on a farm, an old farmhouse, and he said, I need this taken away. And Dad said, how about I'll take it away for you, and then I just get to keep the house. And the guy said, yeah, if you take it away, that's doing me a favor. So I think Dad might have paid, I don't know, $3,000 for the movers. They cut the house in half because it was too big to move in one go. And so he moved it onto this bit of land that my grandmother had. And then they just kind of, I don't know, glued the house back together, and we lived in it. Woo! Good times.
Amazing. I hope they did more than just glue it back together. But the PVA, it's all good.
We survived.
It just leaked in the middle. That's okay. You just don't live in that part. Another way to do it could be something like affiliate marketing. So there is websites out there that would love you to recommend and sell their products, and they give you a link, and any of the sales that come through that link, you get a percentage of that sale. And there are people that actually use their podcast, their social media, their whatever it is, to basically promote other people's products, and then as a result, they make some coin.
So my idea is we should do that.
You should.
So if you want to sell something, let us know. We'll mention it, and our mothers who listen to this podcast might buy it, and then you'll be rolling in it.
Yeah. Or if you want to sell the 30-minute presenter program.
That's a great idea.
Reach out, DM us.
Hit us up.
Yeah, I like that. You could create an online product. Like we just talked about 30-minute presenter program. That is an online product that Sasha and I have created once, and then we get to sell often. So the input, the initial upfront mahi that you do to get that work done, it's a lot of work at the beginning, but once it's done, then it's just trickles through and you make some sales, and yeah. Okay, so if you were thinking about your 10 grand and pace wasn't a problem, you could just save the money. So maybe you could look at freeing up some of your income by not spending it on something else. So is there changes to your situation? Can you cancel all your online TV, networks like Netflix and Amazon Prime and all that kind of stuff, and just save that money? And you could figure out over time how you could get there. So if you could figure out a way to reduce your spending by $100 a week, you get there in a long time. But
you're on the way, right?
way.
So one of the things that interests me about the cost of living crisis is there are people who are really in a cost of living crisis where you take your weekly income and the cost of housing, particularly in Aotearoa, New Zealand, has got out of whack. So people are spending half of their weekly income on their rent, sometimes more than half. Then the cost of fuel, electricity, food, all of that. So that there's a section of the population that is incredibly real for. Mortgage rates are going up. It's going to be tight for a whole lot of families out there that have their own homes. Then there's the category of people that the cost of living crisis affects them, but there's so much fat in the way that we live that we could actually still make choices to save. So to your point, do you have all of the various subscriptions, and could you reduce that? Could you just say for the next 6 months, I'm not going to buy anything new in terms of clothing or shoes? And so if you need something, you go secondhand. What are the opportunities to be really ruthless and aggressive with what you spend and go, well, yes, people always pick on coffee. They go, oh, I'll stop having my lattes. I think that's a terrible idea. But there are things that you can do to make them more effective. Make sure that you're getting all the loyalty programs from the places that you most often visit. Could you go with a longer hairstyle for a period of time? Could you, woman of a certain age, me who's just had my hair coloured yesterday, what would 6 months without hair colour look like? I mean, I know you'd get the sack because these are the false and unfair beauty standards that we face in the West. But there's often a lot of room to trim if we're in that particular income bracket, but we just don't want to. It suits us to just go, oh, it's really hard to save. Well, yeah, it is if you're not prepared to give anything up.
Yeah. Well, maybe in the saving category, maybe we could also repurpose the resources that we have. So if you have a car, could you take the bus and someone pays for the use of your car for a period of time? Or if you're lucky enough to have a house, could you actually move back home and rent out your house until you got to your $10,000 goal, whatever that is, to maybe, invest back into your business?
Move back home with your parents?
Yeah, move back home with your parents. Yeah, totally. Or if you've got a spare bedroom, rent that out and then kick them out when you get to 10 grand. We're only paying the 10 grand rule at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Rent it out and ask them to cook. That would be amazing. Yeah. I'd be amazing. Someone would come and live in my house and cook.
Well, I know someone that they knew that when the America's Cup was on, they could get quite good money for their property. So they just moved out of their property and put it on the market at quite a high rate because it had a view and made quite a bit of money, actually.
Yeah, amazing. I really like the idea too about, I work from home at the moment and I'm really lucky. Our home is beautiful and it's a great environment to work in. There's lots of rooms in our house that don't get used. So I've often thought about, well, if you got really stuck and it all went pear-shaped and what would you do? And I thought, well, I could rent out rooms in the house to be like a WeWork office kind of space. That would be super cool. Yeah,
that would be cool. I like that. We could do clinical trials. Okay,
okay, we're scraping the barrel now.
We're in the more desperate times. But yeah, clinical trials. But maybe not clinical trials, maybe just like test groups or mystery shoppers or...
Yeah, consumer groups, right?
There are people that are literally paying for people to get into focus groups. And if you can kind of find someone, and this is maybe comes down to your network, who do you know and who could they connect you with? And then all of a sudden you're in a group and getting some more money.
Well, I'm also, we joke about the clinical trial stuff, but we actually literally as a society need people to take part in clinical trials. Mm-hmm. So let's not scoff it completely out of the, out of the game. If you are reasonably young, fit, healthy, etc., or reasonably old, fit and healthy, you got less to lose. You've had a good life. I need to talk to my dad about this. Sign yourself up for some clinical trials.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program. All right, well, you could ask for a pay rise or you could swap jobs.
Well, see, this is what's really interesting is that what the research shows really unequivocally is that if you change jobs, you will move up a pay bracket. And the challenging thing is for organisations like ours, who people tend to love to work for and stay at, Les Mills, coffee culture, really challenging for us to go, actually, we want to make sure we continue to reward our people. So it's not a case where we go, if they left, they could get more money. But in this economic environment, it's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And so because of that, I guess, war for talent, if you are talent, you can take advantage of that. And if it, except if you work for one of our companies.
No, especially if you work for one of our companies, because we need good people more than ever.
Yeah, totally. You could take another job, like just work harder for a period of time. I think when you've got to focus, so let's say that the 10 grand was to buy a new computer because you wanted to start an editing software business or whatever and build a website. That could be a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. You're working a bit harder, but it has an end date, and then you get the resource.
I love this idea of seasons in our life, right? So that when we are, so let's generalize. When we're young, I think we've got the capacity to work more than lots of people work. So I know the youth of today, they're all about work-life balance. I'm like, that's great. But in order to play and do some of the things that you might want to do, having a little bit more money is usually always helpful. So your first job might pay for all your living expenses and a little bit of saving, but your second job is your going overseas money, or it's your getting a better car money, or getting a car at all money. And I think that if you analyze how much time you spend actually not doing a lot, those are hours that you've got to trade for work. And, I've always, particularly when I was young, had multiple things on the go, because if I'd catch myself just sitting around, I'm sitting around thinking about going to Fiji. I could actually be working right now to save for a trip to Fiji, right? Then we get busy. The second, like a different season in our life, is when we've got our kids. And it's much harder at that time to try and take second and third jobs on. Certainly not, not everybody in the family can do that. But I still think there's opportunities for a Saturday morning job and I remember speaking to a family once, and they said, we would never have one of us work in the weekends because that's our family time. And on the one hand, I respect that. That's a valid choice. You do you. On the other hand, what is the quality of the time that you are spending? And might it just be that everybody's kind of sleeping in on Saturday morning anyway? So you might have actually been able to get up, do a 3 or 4 hour shift, and that makes a massive difference to the stress, the financial pressure that your families are under the rest of the time. Now, I'm a rabid kind of socialist that wants to change the economic environment, but the reality of what we're in now is having that little bit more money every week makes a difference. And is that possible? And so the third season now is when, for us, our kids have left home. And I know some people are like, great, I can just ease off. I'm doing the opposite. I'm going, no, I want to be able to say yes to friends in Japan. And yes, I might have to go the long route via Singapore to get the cheaper flight that I can. But I'm taking on more work because I've got more time back now that the kids have left. So I don't think there's, when you think about your $10,000 hustle, I don't think we should be shouldn't be afraid of just working a bit harder. It's kind of not fashionable to send that message out there, but come on.
Yeah, I love it. So really what we've been talking about is just that exercise in creativity. Like if you really wanted to do something, and we're using $10,000 as an example, but it could be anything. Just what ways could you go at it? What resources do you have that you could monopolize or recapitalize or invest in a different way? How could you change your spending, your focus, your energy, or your time? The time that you're spending doing something could be focused somewhere else. As Sasha says, some things are just for a season. They're just a moment in time. It doesn't mean it has to be that hard forever, or you don't have to go without that thing forever, but those little moments of focus can give you that speed and momentum to get you to where you want to be.
I've got an offer for you. If anyone wants to give up store-bought coffee for like a 8-week period, you want to give up and you absolutely commit to doing that and saving that money, I will send you every week for free enough coffee to make plunger coffee at home before you leave in the morning. That's a genuine offer. If you want to save the price of your coffee and you can prove how you're going to do it, I'll supply you with coffee that you can have at home, because I'd love you guys to kind of get your heads around what some kind of sacrifices might look like in order to go after something with a bit more vigor.
Hey, so tell me about your trip to Finland. Because you've been away, I've been away, and that's why we had to do the re-release of a couple of our episodes. And I know what's going to happen next week. Might be another re-release again because you're off again. But anyway, why don't we talk about Finland for a start? What did you do?
Oh, it's an incredible place, and huge thanks to our hosts, Sammy and Nadia, who invited a group of us to come from all over the world. We went right up to the top of Finland, a place called Kusamo. And we did it all. We went ice diving, so went out of the sauna into like a frozen lake that they'd cut a hole in. You walk down the lattice until you are under the icy water. We did ice driving, so in Audis, doing rally driving, so learning how to skid around the corners on a frozen lake. Reindeer sleigh rides, feeding reindeer, feeding on reindeer.
Did you eat Rudolph?
I've never eaten... I hadn't eaten reindeer before, but golly, I ate plenty. If you're a vegan, you should stop listening, or vegetarian. We had reindeer like raw, cured, boiled, stewed, fried. I mean, it was just delicious. It's like venison, beautiful. Husky sleigh rides, climbing, snowshoeing up to the top of mountains to look out to Russia and give Putin the fingers. And yeah, it was an absolutely mind-blowing experience. There's actually a program on Netflix at the moment. Eugene Levy, who's the dad out of Schitt's Creek and American Pie, he's got a Netflix program called The Reluctant Traveler, or maybe it's The Reluctant Tourist, one of those two. And the first episode, he goes to Finland. And so all the kinds of things that he's doing, that's what I was doing. And the same reindeer herder woman is on it right at the end. She sits down and has a meal with him. She was the most incredible woman, explaining to us all about how reindeer live in that part of the world. Amazing experience.
Oh, man. Well, Joe and I just went to Fiji.
Bulla, yay.
Oh, yeah. But we're in that season now where the kids can pretty much, look after themselves. So we went, all right, girls, we're going away for 6 nights. So we jumped on the plane, went to Fiji, snorkeled off the beach, found Nemo and his dad several times. But yeah, it was just, so good. Just relax, swim, chill, love it.
Yeah, do the mahi, get the treats.
So what are you reading at the moment, Sash? Anything inspiring?
I'm reading a fantastic book by Jennifer Egan called The Candy House. It's
not written by the Candy Man.
Not written by the Candy Man, and it's not like a Willy Wonka story. It's actually about, set in the near future, sort of bits of it in 2025, AI, Facebook on steroids, really, really fascinating. And I have to work hard to read it. I don't mind that. It's really great story, but you have to have your wits about you to keep up with who's who. So good, so good.
Did you ever see Black Mirror when that was on?
Yeah.
Did you see the one where they were allowed to go into certain buildings or certain cafes based on their rating?
Yeah.
And the more they smiled, and no one wanted to complain about anything, because if they did, their rating would drop. Oh man, that was sinister.
That's legit what happens in China with their WeChat credit scores. You have to have a certain amount of credit points to be eligible to stay at certain hotels, and it's a way of like stopping bad debt and stuff. Interesting. Wow. Interesting times. You know what I say? 20 good summers and then we're gone.